This video will contain spoilers for Oban Star Racers. Hello everyone! Welcome back from spring break. I hope you had a wonderful Easter as well as a wonderful time. So without further ado, let's continue on with this list, and it's a top 10. I'm doing an anime, but unfortunately if you're wondering where my comic and anime otaku loving Black-footed Ferret is, Loki's kind of going through some serious stuff after reading the latest chapters of My Hero Academia. I did ask him to get involved with this list. Well, let's just say I kind of found him in this state while he was in a pile of comic books. Anyway, if you're wondering what Oban Star Racers is about for this top 10 list, it's a story about a young girl named Eva who travels across space with the Earth team in order to win the race of Oban to get her mother back and reunite with her loving father.
A young man to you? Can't you see I'm a girl?
Oh, is that so? Well then, you've got even less of a reason to be here. This is not a shopping mall. You're in the hangar of a star racing team. Now leave before I kick you off the premises myself.
This is all a big mistake. My name's Eve.
Isn't he charming, ladies and gentlemen? But I feel like the more charming character and star of the show is Eva Wei. Eva has been in a crewing boarding school for 14 years, but she's pretty good with mechanics as well as has a good skill in racing. Despite of her being girly, she's not afraid to pull off big, awesome stunts. I give that a huge 10, ladies and gentlemen. And putting that aside, for this list, I'm going to go over some of the best episodes in Oban Star Racers. This list is going to include the episodes from Season 1, though I do wish they would have spent more time on this. The writing is fantastic and it's an interesting world that you can really get invested into, as well as has a very likable, if not a little bit relatable, main character. So with this episode, it's going to focus on more of the emotional concepts, if they had huge plot lines to the story, or just simply because there are some interesting characters in this show. Without further ado, let's begin. Prince Aika isn't exactly my personal favorite alien, as well as this episode, but I do like some of his mannerisms and his nice nature. So he and Eva have a nice truce about how to win the race. However, Jordan and Don Wei aren't exactly thrilled of getting involved with that, considering the fact that, one, he's the enemy, and two, everything is kind of on the line for humanity. But Eva and Aika decide to try to do the race their own way, just enjoying themselves. And this is why I put it at number 10. Despite of how things went out at the end of a race, the two just had wonderful chemistry as they flew and tried to overcome each other. And that just says a lot about their relationship. even though that friendship kind of took a dark turn at the end of that episode, as well as later on in the Oban race, you gotta admit they have a very nice chemistry together and try their best. And of course, Don Wei was being a very uptight individual that played dirty, as well as the fact that he was stressing that a lot was on the line. Well, if you could explain everything that is going on to your crew, and more importantly, Molly, who is practically having all of humanity on her shoulders, it would just kill you to at least give her an explanation to care about what you say. Oh boy, Secret Lake Seoul. Seoul isn't exactly a favorite, especially among the racers, nor if that's a safe bet among the fandom. His design is interesting, but his personality is yet to be desired. So in this episode, Molly comes across a conspiracy that is led by none other but by Prince Aika, trying to convince the other racers to try to take down Seoul in the race in order to achieve the ultimate prize. But for some of you who may have seen that show, you probably already know of a real reason why Aika would pull off something like that. And of course, Molly, being a very kind-hearted and fair-minded person that she is, decides to go over and warn Seoul. However,
I wasted my time. I welcome the surprise attack. It would break up the monotony of this competition.
oh, and if you like this, it just gets better from there. Guess what he has to explain in terms of why he wants the race.
Space and even the course of destiny. There is nothing left for me to wish for. Go.
In the end, though, even though it wasn't technically dead, Seoul's arrogance soon led him to be facing off none other than Canaletto alone. Even though he knows flat out that this guy is bad news, he just simply shrugs it off of, I've seen worse, before he meets his demise. And this episode, I put it at number 9 because even though there was a lot going on, I felt like the biggest highlight was just Molly's selfless character. It just shows of how much of a great racer she is. There was a strong reason why these guys were so terrifying to the Earth team. The Krogs are very ruthless. It doesn't help that their main opponent is now Colonel Toros, one of the members of the group, who practically cut the ship in two, resulting in a major loss. I picked this episode because of just how dangerously cunning the Krogs are, and why they're not something to laugh at. Also, it was a nice solid moment between Aika and Eva because they both know what's going on with doing a major loss, as well as the fact that they both lost to some very strong opponents. And this is a very sweet moment of where they develop their relationship. It was bittersweet considering the fact of what happened in Agile like Aika, but you can't complain about how it's set up. But it's still also put further up on this list because we have a very terrifying introduction to our main villain, Canaletto, who practically eliminated his follower later on. They always say revenge is best served cold, And in this case, we've had a huge revenge episode. So, if some of you have remembered what had happened in Treacherous Like Tauros, Eva and Jordan lost to Tauros in the most horrible way possible. However, in the race, with the help of some scrubs, they turned things around and managed to take him out in one death-defying move. Anyone else immediately thought about a dart? I mean, seriously, those croc ships may look great for taking out ships, but when it comes to speed and agility, those things are like practically play darts. I do like Rush in all honesty. Aside from Ica, he's one of the few alien characters who doesn't act like a sore loser whenever Eva wins the race or stands up to them. And he definitely shows that a lot in the race. The duo, Eva and Jordan, take on Rush in a target practice race where they have to try to take out many targets as possible. Many of you may find that a little similar to some of the target games that we would play in certain video games. And I picked this one because we get a little bit more backstory and depth with Don Wei. After all, we'd seen him as being a very tight butt, so of course it definitely was nice to have a little bit more backstory, as well as him opening up a little bit more, showing his more vulnerable side compared to his up and cold attitude he had delivered toward everyone, including poor Eva, who just wants to connect with him. And so this really is a very interesting and enjoyable episode. I really appreciate of how Rush is just that breath of fresh air we needed after a constant race of cheating and backstabbing from the other alien competitors. Rush is just one of the few shining examples, along with Ica, of how you could play nice with the other racers without playing dirty. And I cannot thank the people who did this well enough. We just need that purity. I feel like Canalito is a bit of an underrated villain. He really has the power to manipulate things around him, despite being stripped of the powers of Avatar, and he would do anything to get those powers back, even if it means relying on some minions and manipulating Eva into doing his will. And what I mean by that is in the moment of truth, this happens.
Alchemy, a blazing pain within you. Once in place, I simply waited for this flame to reach Oban and set the entire galaxy ablaze.
My mother, it was you. You made her crash. You made her crash, didn't you?
She had to go.
Thankfully, though, with Jordan's sacrifice, by taking the crown of the Avatar, he was able to save Molly from a horrible fate. Even though this was a very bittersweet episode, it definitely had some realism to it, as well as we all know that Eva doesn't want power. She just wants her family back, and she just was trying to do what was best for everyone, even if her heart was in the right place. But Jordan's love and sacrifice for Eva definitely gave her a sense of closure and allowed to make things up with her dad.
Some days I feel like none of it really happened. I never left Earth. It was just a dream. But it wasn't a dream. I've got my dad back.
Again, this episode was a nice closure to what both Danwei and Eva have been through. They went through hell and back, through space and Earth itself, in order to compete in the race of Oban. And even though they weren't able to revive Maya, they were able to have each other. And in a lot of ways, that is the best prize of all. So, despite the title being called ominous like Oh, this actually focuses on something entirely different. So, Danwei had found out Eva is his long-lost daughter after 10 years, and thus confronts her about why he did what he did.
I continue to be a danger for those I love. I couldn't have you near me. I couldn't risk harming you as well.
Even though this action wasn't exactly justified, Danwei was just trying to do what was best for Eva. He was an emotional wreck after losing Maya and just felt like he may hurt Eva in the process. And sad to say, that's something a little similar to real-life problems. However, it didn't exactly help with Eva's anger. It just got worse when she learns about that he put his life back together and never bothered to come back to her after 10 whole years. This just even made her more determined than ever to win the race of Oban, so that way they could become a family once again. And this is why I put it further down on this list. It helps explore more about Danwei's reasoning about why he abandoned Eva all those years ago, as well as why he was just such a mess in the first place. Both of them were just dealing with grief, very unhealthy. Eva was stuck in the past and just wanted to move on, but wasn't able to because her father practically left her behind, while Danwei was just trying to avoid the past like every single possible chance he could get. But the emotions in this episode were practically high. Oh yes, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to get more tears and pain in this number 3 list. So Danwei has a flashback upon learning about Eva, and then of course thinking about his time with Maya Wei before the accident.
Maya,
I hope you haven't forgotten our special date.
And of course, the race goes on as usual, but Eva finds herself in the outrageous path of Mir. Apparently, Cross tried to put him into a pool of acid, which definitely set him off like the 4th of July. Mir attacks and confronts Eva only to find memories of her own sense of loss. This triggers something very interesting into Mir and brings her over to her ship, where she discovers some very interesting backstory. Oh, trust me, ladies and gentlemen, it just gets sadder from there. This has to be one of the saddest episodes Oban Star Racers has ever made. Even though it doesn't give us a whole lot of backstories about the racers, we can't help but find ourselves sympathizing with Eva, Mir, and any other alien we come across. Well, not completely, but with Mir, we definitely feel bad about his plight and just want him to feel better. And this is why I just put this episode in number 3, because it is just emotionally draining of just learning of Mir's horrible loss and the struggles he's dealing with of trying to do the ways to bring her back. Spirit is one of the scariest aliens in Oban Star Racers. From his eyes to the way he just has that almost emotionless stare, you can't tell what he's thinking, as well as the fact that he can't talk. To make matters worse, he has the capability of shape-shifting his body into a bird-like creature. But as the icing on the cake, basically, he supposedly killed Maya Wei, and thus resulting in ruining Eva and Donwei's life. So, yeah, Eva had a hell of a time.
He's on the reactor.
Yeah, so basically, Donwei and Eva were both suffering from PTSD over time. Though I do like Spirit's spaceship design. It's definitely organic and definitely makes it feel like a very hard opponent to take down. Despite of how things ended in the race, you can't help but feel like when Spirit holds his hands up, he tries to show that he is not trying to hurt Eva. I think in some ways he immediately recognized her from before and seen her in the race all those years ago and wanted to try to show her the truth. In that moment alone, when there were no words to be spoken, you can definitely sense the grief, the heaviness of that sorrow in Spirit's eyes, the sheer regret that he wasn't able to save a racer, and some ways indirectly responsible for a situation that was beyond his control and Eva's loss. So, thanks a lot, Kenolito, you Skeksis ripped off. You basically not only screwed Eva and Donwei over, but you also screwed Spirit over too. For quite some time, we've had an air of mystery with our avatar. He always comes and goes, and Satis would sometimes takes his place. However, things are not what they seem. Turns out we've had an ultimate earth-shattering reveal. After Eva and Jordan finally come back and try to confront the Avatar began to crumble and fade away. We soon learned that this was none other than Satis, who was actually the Avatar all along. Upon learning this, there were a lot of mixed emotions from a lot of people upon learning the truth, as well as the fact that upon learning the fact that the Avatar can't bring people back to life, think of like something from Genie from Aladdin. The toll got heavier at that moment.
Dear Donwei, Mr. President, it was a shock to me as well. However, this may be an even greater opportunity for us. Think of all we could achieve with a human avatar. You must get her to race.
Sir, we can't. We've used her from the beginning.
And the galaxy will be our oyster!
Okay, ew.
Prepare the humans. Prepare the armada. In a few hours, I, the Avatar, will lead you to victory against the humans.
Oh hell no, that is not happening. Overall, I put this episode in number 1 because I felt like there was a good plot twist about the rules of the Avatar as well as the origins of Oban. But it also makes the situation more devastating to Eva, who's been risking her life for nothing. But at the same time, this episode shows of how much the stakes have heightened. Not only the fact that we were dealing with Canaletto, but also the fact that all life on Earth, as well as all life in the galaxy, practically rested on her. And that was one of the best episodes Oban had to offer. So this is it, folks. These are my thoughts on the Oban Star Racing episodes and why they're the best. If you feel like there are some episodes you thought were good, please comment below about that. Like, subscribe. This is Dragon Videos, signing off.